Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Julio Godinez, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, Why DevOps Tools Do Not Speak Developer Language and How to Overcome This, brought to you by Komodor. We have a great webinar for you today, but before we get started, I need to go through some housekeeping announcements. Today's event is being recorded, so if you miss any part of the webinar, you will be able to watch it again. We will be sending out a link to access the webinar on demand, or you can visit devops.com/webinar, and it will be available for you as well. We are taking questions from the audience throughout the presentation. Use your webinar interface to submit questions into the Q&A section, and we will try to get to as many as possible at the end. Finally, stick around until the end because we are doing a drawing for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so stay tuned to see if you're a winner. Joining me today is Baruch Sagodorovski, Head of DevOps Advocacy at Jfrog, and Itiel Shwartz, CTO and co-founder of Komodor. I'm now going to put myself on mute, turn off my camera, and let you begin.
Right. Hello and welcome, everybody. It's great to be here, and it's great to be here with Itiel. We've already been introduced. I'm the head of DevOps Advocacy with Jfrog, and my job is helping developers being more productive with DevOps, which is exactly the topic of today's webinar. And here with me, Itiel, CTO and co-founder of Komodor. And Itiel, the mic is yours. And you're on mute. Still on mute. Well, don't you love those webinars? Nope. Best start ever. Okay, while Itiel is restarting, hopefully that will help. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, here you go.
Did it work?
Yes,
Yeah.
but now we don't see you, we only hear you. But, oh, yes.
Okay, now is everything working? Can you hear me and see me correctly?
Yes, it's amazing.
All of the preparation before the webinar, and this is what we get. So hello everyone, sorry for the technical glitch. My name is Itiel. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Komodor. We are building the first Kubernetes native troubleshooting platform. The goal of Komodor is to help dev and DevOps to troubleshoot issues in Kubernetes easier without the hassle and complexity that the current solution provides. So this is a little bit about Komodor. Maybe we'll go and do like a deeper dive throughout the presentation. So I think we'll get started, right? Well, after all of the issues. So I think I don't need to tell anyone here that today world looks very, very much different versus the previous years. Like deployment frequency is just going up. We see GitOps taking off like almost every organization. And we see how the KPI of mean time to deploy is just getting smaller and smaller. So in this like new and exciting world, we see Kubernetes that became basically the main and the de facto container orchestrator. But more than that, it's not only the main container orchestrator, but it became the default platform for deploying application in the cloud. Even with the small rise of Lambda and serverless, we see how for most organizations, most of the heavy workload is done in Kubernetes, or if it's not in Kubernetes yet, it is going to be in the future. Baruch, do you want to continue from here, or do you want me to?
No. I mean, so far you're on point. This is one of the diagrams from the State of DevOps report that we really love. And obviously, this J curve is what most of us experience, right? When we start the automation, we get this a little bit dive because people, we increase the test automation, we do more stuff, but the machine, things are falling behind the cracks just because it's not something that we used to. But then we kind of get better with that, and eventually our productivity and the quality of our software surpasses of what we could ever imagine doing manually. So yes, the challenges are there because of the complexity and because we do things differently now.
Yeah, completely. So I'm going to start the discussion part maybe with the first question out of a couple that we prepared, and feel free to ask questions yourself. Is who should own the troubleshooting process in the age of Kubernetes? Like, let's say we are a cloud native startup or company. Everything is in Kubernetes. We are fully CI/CD. We are like an elite performer in the DevOps and in the agility of our developer. And now the question rises, like, who should own troubleshooting? In the middle of the night, who should my pager duty should call? Is it the developer? Is it the DevOps? Do I really need DevOps? Or maybe the SRE, or like platform observability, or some other name for a guy or girl who mainly does infrastructure related tasks and expertise. So
Yep.
Baruch, I'll start by...
Considering that DevOps is not a person, right? It's a bunch of practices. That's the middle arrow does not exist. DevOps is not a person. So we end up with a end up with a binary choice, right? It's either the developers or the infrastructure people, the infrastructure folks. And I think here the answer is very clear. It is the infrastructure folks, because mostly for two reasons. The first is they are the ones on call, right? This is kind of part of their job description. They're there for this exact scenario when things go bump at night. So this is that makes sense that they are the first to start the troubleshooting and to look at it. And frankly, between you and me, most of the time it's somewhere there in the infrastructure that happened and that broke things. So going with where most of the time the problem is, I think makes sense.
Interesting. I'm not sure that I completely buy the fact that like it's mostly the infrastructure. I think what we see, like how I see it, is the question who like the system is now broken, right? If not, there won't be like an issue. There is no on-call problem. But now the system is broken. I will say that most of the time the issue is a change that happened somewhere across the system. Someone somewhere deployed something, and now all of the sudden like Facebook is down, or we have like a lot of issues in our system. And I think in the GitOps world, or in the world where most deploys are not done by the SRE, and it's not really related to the SRE, right? Like all I did is commit to master, and now all of the sudden the production is deployed. And I really believe in like you deploy it, you own it until proven otherwise. So I think that the main reason that the ops people were responsible for troubleshooting in the old days is the fact that they were the one moving the code from the dev environment into like the production side. But now, if the developer is responsible, like why me as an SRE need to wake up if you wrote like a bad code, about like it doesn't make any sense. Like, and how can I help you? Like, it's your code, you should fix it. No?
So I guess we are here in the essence of DevOps right now, right? We talk about this collaboration, existing or not existing collaboration between the two parts of the house, between the ops that kind of is de facto on call and observe and monitor the systems, and they go like, well, we have no idea what to do here. Looks like the code is broken and we have no clue what to do.
Yeah. I think like we see more and more of this, mainly as we see like the ratio between the dev and the operation people. And operation can be SRE or like infrastructure, or it doesn't really matter. But in the end of the day, in most organization we see it's like 10-1, and finding a good operation like person who know Kubernetes and knows like what is really going on is super hard and super difficult. So I think at least quite a large chunks of the troubleshooting process should move from the SRE into the dev that should be on call, right? Like you build it, you own it, you troubleshoot it, kind of mentality. And I think like because of the the move to like a more solid infrastructure, and B, much more developers that are moving really fast, it is unavoidable that some part of the troubleshooting process will be routed to the dev, which will probably need to be on call, right? Like we do see it in a lot of the modern organizations. Okay, so let's move, I think, to question 2. Or Baruch, do you want to say something before that?
Yeah, no, I think we highlighted here the problem that still the infrastructure folks are the ones in charge, but most of the time, or some of the time, they don't have the right answers.
Yep. I can tell you, by the way, like as an anecdote, like Komodor is a Kubernetes troubleshooting platform, and we see a lot of customers. We talk with the SRE, we talk with the developers. We ask them like, what are your pains? How can Komodor help you? And we are happy like to help companies overcome those challenges. But one of the biggest like requests from the dev team that we keep on hearing is basically the SRE are telling us, if all you do is allow the developer to solve like 20% of the issues without talking with me, it's amazing. Like this is all you need to do, and I will sleep better, I will eat better, I will look better. Like this is everything they really need to make their life easier. And I'm happy to say that we do provide this value, but it's so apparent that they don't really want to troubleshoot as they used to. Yeah. Okay, so now let's go to question number 2. What is blocking organization from shifting left? So Baruch, do you want to?
Yeah, of course. So, but you can see here the answers. But the obvious ones, that are pretty trivial to solve, is the lack of Kubernetes knowledge. Then you go and you learn Kubernetes, lack of permissions and access, and that's again a cultural thing, right? It's about trust of your workforce. Basically, it's about trust of the engineers inside the organization. There is a whole new discussion about how security should be done in the age of DevOps, and whether it should change from what we used to do. But that's a discussion for a different time. The 2 bottom ones, I think, are more interesting in regards to our discussion. The lack of cultural mindset. This is exactly what we spoke about on the previous slide. This is exactly the part where actually the people on call, the infrastructure folks, they are in charge for whatever happened, and they don't even know how to start and shift left to the developers. They don't even know how to go ahead and kind of pass the baton to the other side of the house. And even when this is solved on the level of mindset, when we say, okay, we understand we are in it together and the developer should participate, and the other side understand that as well. Yes, we want to help and wake us when something bumps at night, or we will sit with you in the war room when problem happened. Then the next question is what we as developers can do. We sit there, we have our ID open, we have our code, we have we wish to help, we are all there. What do we do? How can we participate in the process? And how can we contribute even when we are ready to take this responsibility?
Yeah, I think like the main issue, like the first issue is the lack of, I don't know, like they don't really, some developers, yeah, I don't want to say everyone, they don't really want like the first level, right? They don't want the ability to troubleshoot, because when you need to troubleshoot, when you are on call, then it means that you're on call. It means that they will call you on the holiday. It will call you in the middle of the night. And, like I've done on call for most of my career. It's not fun. Like no one, like the SRE, the DevOps, like no one loves to drop everything he's doing and basically try and like save the day. It's not a fun activity. And I think like this is again like one of the first issues. I think the lack of permission and access is the most interesting one. And I think that we will talk about like the cultural mindset and lack of like developer friendly tools on the next slides, I believe. But the lack of permission is super interesting because, I'm talking with a lot of organization and I'm asking them like, what is your troubleshooting process? Like the system is now broken. It happens to you? Yeah, sure. It happens a lot. Okay, great. And who handles it? The DevOps or like the SRE. Okay. Like why can't the developer troubleshoot the issue himself? And then they are like, yeah, but he can't access the logs in production. What? No, like he can't see all of the resources. And I'm like, what? So you want him to deploy, you trust him in a fully CI/CD manner. He can change and like basically crash everything that is currently happening in production on one hand. But on the other hand, you are telling me that you can't let him view the logs because it's too sensitive and like it's not a possibility. I think like it's quite madness in a lot of organizations, the lack of permission and access, because they trust the developers so much, but when it comes down to can he view the logs, can he revert, can he view AWS console, the answer is no. And like I say, like organization that in the protocol, how do I fix an issue? They need to run a revert script like manually or maybe in Jenkins or something like that. And when I ask them like who has the permission to run the script, it's only the DevOps. So the developer can deploy a new version, like this is not an issue. But once you need to run a script that change production, then only like 3 people in the organization are allowed to do it. And they're like, yeah, it is the case. It is the case. And I think like the lack of permission and access, it's the easiest thing to handle and overcome. But even with that, like in mind, it's not really happening, right? Like a lot, like I do see a lot of organizations that give all of those permissions, but sometimes the DevOps guard them so tight, like and close to the chest, that it is quite absurd. Like I was just talking the other day with SRE, and he's like, yeah, I'm the only one who can restart pods in production. Developers can deploy code, they can change things, they can change feature flag that might crash everything. But yeah, like restarting a pod or like deleting a pod, no, I'm the only one who can do it. Yeah, it's really problematic. And, I wish somehow I could trust them. And I think like, it is something with like the old mentality of who owns the troubleshooting and how basically, and how do we troubleshoot, right? Like it comes to the essence of both of them.
Yeah, and that's a discussion about security, access, and it's also a cultural thing, right? But it's different, and it's there because of the old ways that security has been done, from like auditing perspective, from like locking everything out perspective, this kind of stuff.
Yep. No, exactly. And let's move to the next one.
Yeah, go ahead, Itiel. That happened again. We cannot hear you. Yep. Nope. All right. So I'll take it while you restart. The next question is, so we kind of get DevOps, right? In terms of culture, we know that it's all the way. We shifted left. For example, deployment. We shifted left deployment, and we know that the developers now, once they commit, it goes all the way to production by itself, and this is great. We solved like a huge a huge problem of this throwing things across the silo, right? We not anymore like commit the code and go home, like we have here in this meme that worked fine in dev, and now it's ops problem. And actually, when we do the deployment, when we create stuff, we take ownership as developers. It goes to all the way to production. But when it comes to incident response, suddenly our gap is there again. In the incident response, suddenly the same developers that we just trusted to deploy and do all the way, and we believe that they are doing the right thing, and everything, when it comes to the incident response, suddenly we have those silos again. Suddenly it's again the developers and the ops own the process, and they have the access and they have everything. And from the other side, the developers are, in worst case, not there, in best case there, but really powerless or helpless to participate in the process. So we made very good steps in DevOps when it comes to deploying new code, but it feels like in a lot of places we're still there in the old ways when it comes to incident response. And the question is why?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Baruch?
Yes.
I can try
Yep.
and answer on the why part. And I think, like, we talked about it on earlier slides, but it's a combination of two. Like, if everyone who is deploying to production is the DevOps, it makes sense that he's going to have the mindset when it comes to incident response. Like, he's responsible for the change. He is responsible to check the change. He should troubleshoot the issue. It makes total sense. On the other hand, in organization where like those tasks were taken from the ops and moved into the dev, I think like the technical part is maybe easier. Like all you need to do is to set a Argo CD or Jfrog, and you can solve like the technical issue of who can deploy code to production. Today, it's quite easy. It's not like, you need Chef Puppet or manually pushing on like CDs. But I think the main issue with the cultural like gap is, it takes people time to change. It's like as simple as that. They are used to be the heroes, like a lot of the times the operation are used to be the cowboys that storm in and save the day. And for some of them, like more of like the old guard is basically, it's harder for them to let go, I think, of the power of like being the heroes and saving the day. I think when you talk with the SRE or like DevOps, you see like two different kind of personas. Like, and I'm going to be like very stereotypical, but there are the ones who are more of like old-fashioned. I should own everything. I should authorize everything. I should troubleshoot and so on. And you see the new people, they are like, yeah, I don't want to do it. I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night. I'm getting the same salary, so why won't the dev wake up in the middle of the night? I will sleep like a baby, and like it's great. And we see like two really big difference in the personas of who is owning and who is like the one who owns all of the troubleshooting process, between the guys that are telling us, if I wake up in the middle of the night, something, I don't know, like everything is down, and the developer, I gave them so much tools and help, and they still fail to do it. And I think the ones that are like, yeah, like I wake up in the middle of the night, the dev, they have no idea, like they can understand Kubernetes. Do they even know what an ingress is? How can I trust them with the keys to troubleshoot when the production is down? And I think it's very much like the state of mind. And when you look at new companies or like new people that are coming and joining the field, and are becoming SRE and like DevOps, you see, I think, like people with more of like a dev mentality of let's automate everything, let's move it like from us, and we don't need this job security maybe of the ones who are having the key to the troubleshooting part. And I think like it's, you know, it's a cultural thing that it will be like as time progress. I don't think like in 10 years from now it will be a question. I hope so, at least, right? But this is how I see it.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so now we talked a lot about the cultural issues, right? And what is the current state and who should own it. But let's say we have an issue, and let's say it is in production, and the developer, for some reason, he is the one responsible for the troubleshooting part. So now there is the question, maybe it's not true, but I'll be happy to hear your thoughts. Why the current DevOps tools doesn't speak developer language, or maybe they do? So your take on this question.
Yeah, no, they definitely not, and I already mentioned it when we spoke about like the intro that even when we solve the cultural problems that we spoke about in previous slides, in the end of the day, the developers feel powerless when it comes to using to incident response, because they really don't have this connection in the tools that are currently used for incident response to anything DevOps, to anything developer related, right? And the answer why is exactly in the history and the culture that we spoke previously. Once all the incident management is an infrastructure related topic, the tools naturally follow the culture, right? And then all the tools are very, very infrastructure oriented. And when the culture changes, what we see now, what we spoke about, the tools follow. We are just not there yet, or are we?
Yep. Yeah, I think like how I see it, I think like because of the change, like when a SRE, again, I keep saying DevOps, but when an SRE is troubleshooting an issue, he wants to understand everything that is happening in the system. Like he doesn't really understand, like care about how is my service, let's call it like payment service in Kubernetes, is acting. Like it's such a small part of everything he's responsible for that he wants to get the macro level view all of the time. He wants the big dashboard telling him everything is okay. And if not, he wants the ability to understand like the high level view of what is happening. And when you look at tools such as, I don't know, like Datadog or like New Relic, which are great tools, like, you know, we're using Datadog internally, they have a very like macro level view in mind. They are like, yeah, see everything, understand everything, build your own dashboard. Like they built a great system that allow you to get a very, very good like high level overview of what is currently happening in your system and monitoring it. So this is like from the one hand, what those tools are made for, and they really solve. When you think about a developer that is troubleshooting an issue, he knows a very, very small portion of the organization. He's not responsible for, I don't know, like for the Kafka stability and Postgres stability and the network layer and the firewall rules. Like he doesn't really care. He knows the payment service. Maybe he knows a couple of other services that this specific service is talking with. Maybe he knows the database, right? He's not, he knows the load balancer, but that's pretty much it. So this developer, when he troubleshoots an issue, he doesn't want all of this great power and great responsibility the current DevOps tool have. He doesn't want the understanding of what is currently happening across everything. He just wants to understand, first of all, what is happening in his very like small piece of heaven, basically. And if there's like issues on the side, he do want to understand so he can troubleshoot it. So he wants a micro level view of the world and maybe like a small glimpse of what is outside of his domain or her domain, sorry. And And I think most of the, I won't say call them like legacy tools, but the SRE oriented tools are really missing the point here, because a developer, when you go into Datadog, he has so many different options and capabilities and filters and dashboards and so on. It really makes it hard for him or her to understand what is happening, because it's not the mentality that he have. I will say that, like, on the other hand, if you will look at a tool such as I don't know, maybe like Sentry or Bugsnag, which is very, or even Jaeger in the tracing world, which are really a dev first tools. You go into Sentry as a developer and you feel at home. Oh, this is my application. Those are the environment. It has like those exceptions that are currently happening. And when you go to Datadog, it's like, what? Or Prometheus, it doesn't really matter. What is happening here? Why do I need so many dashboards? Why do I need so many graphs? Why is this graph going up? Why is this going down? Does it make sense? And I think like the transformation of making those tools more suitable for developer, the transformation didn't really begin even. Like, it is so early on. Like here at Komodor, I will say that we have like the dev first mentality. We help both the dev and the SRE, because we understand both of them need to troubleshoot the issue. But I will say that for like most modern tools, we see how they pick one side because they think like he's going to be the one who is using me, while basically not giving the easy way in for new tools, new users. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And Anna here comments that all of the tools, New Relic and AppDynamics and what's not, eventually can give you the info that you need. And obviously this is true. The real question is, how much effort and how much knowledge do you need in order to get the information that you need from those tools, considering that you are in the middle of an incident and obviously you are under stress and you want the tools that give you as much meaningful information in the way that is accessible the most. And while you know what, you can do everything with everything and you can look at the machine code and understand what went wrong, the real question is how much of an effort you need to put there under stress in the middle of a fire in order to get the right response.
Yeah, I will say, like, Anna, I agree, like, that with New Relic and AppDynamic, they have all of the data. Everything the dev needs exists on those tools. And I think they do have everything. I think they just scare people, basically, because it's hard to get started and to understand what is happening. So I don't think they are missing any kind of data points. Like, New Relic have everything.
Exactly.
So, like, if you want a metric, it's there. If you want a view, it's there. Like, you can customize it and do everything, but it's a power user tool for like most people, and not like a simple like dev first tool. Unlike maybe like other tools that I mentioned, Bugsnag.
Absolutely.
But I agree that those tools are great.
Yeah, they are great. The real question is, who are their target audience? And if the target audience that we speak about changes, how easy it is for the new target audience to access it. And Anna mentions here that both ops and devs need to learn them, and this is 100% correct. But the mindset of those groups is different. The specialization is different. What they know and excel in is different. And it's very hard to create a tool that is successfully caters for both audiences with exactly same level of experience. And this is fine. It's not a problem. It's just something that we need to be aware of. The whole DevOps thing is not about making dev and ops exactly the same. It's about building collaboration between two inherently different groups that need to be different for the right reasons. So when we look at the tools that they use, the tools are different. And yes, obviously, a developer can master any complexity of the ops tool and the other way around, because in the end of the day, both groups are software engineers and most of the time talented and knowledgeable software engineers. But is the incident when everything is on fire is the right place and the right time to bend to get out of the comfort zone and learn the tools of the other mindset?
Yeah, like I think like I think we have like a total agreement here about the need like to the different like speciality and the need or the difficulty it is like to master them. Okay, so how can we bridge the gap between the dev and the ops team? So now we are going to move a little bit like to best practices. Bob, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. So the best practices are, first of all, I kind of a little bit disagree with you here about troubleshooting independently. I think the right term would be troubleshooting together, right? Because independently, and this goes back to our kind of original disagreement, if you wish, about whose whose ownership it is. Because I still think that the infrastructure people kind of lead the charge, and then the developers play a very important role, but they work together with the infrastructure people. I really don't see a scenario when the developer is on call and infrastructure people are not. That sounds to me just wrong, as wrong as the other way around. It's all about doing it together. It's all about not independently, but together, one with another. Yes, probably using different tools, as we just spoke, but it's a common effort. It's a joint effort that needs to be done together.
Yeah, so I think I see again like back to the original like who should own it part. I
Yep.
think I do see like the word a little bit differently here,
Yep.
mainly because I think that I see like the stress or the amount of like things the SRE are doing, and I think it can't really scale going forward. And I think if the developers won't be able to take a very big chunk out of the troubleshooting world independently, like something will break. Maybe like more developer will be SRE. I'm not sure like how it's going. Maybe they'll write less bugs, but I'm not sure how the world is going to look like. Mainly because the numbers doesn't really add up. I think what you said about like working together, I think it's like a pyramid, like a test pyramid, or I don't know, like any pyramid. I think like at the bottom, I think most issues should be handled by the developer. I think the infrastructure should be quite reliable. It should work most of the time, and the developers should answer and fix a lot of the common issues.
I don't think we are in disagree there. Of course, we both agree how important it is for the developers to be a part. The question is, again, independently. My kind of question for this slide is independently is really what is going to happen, or we're talking about developers participating on call and being on par with the ops people and solving everything that has to do with the code changes. But independently, I think that's we are going all the way to the other extreme. That would kind of my point.
like how I see it, like going forward, like you have like five dev teams maybe, that all of them are on a call, like each one represent from his division, or I don't know, and you have one like SREs on call. most issues are not really escalated to him, and like the dev are basically solving it. And once an issue is so big or so complex that you must have like the SRE, then yeah, sure, like he should handle it. Or if the DB is down, like this is one of the tricky parts. Like if the database is currently down, don't wake up all of the 5 dev on call. Like what are they going to do? Watch a SRE like solve the issue and do a like a DB migration rollover, I don't know, something like that. So I think like, the interesting part is first of all like the ability to triage the issue, to understand who is the relevant persona that should handle the situation here. And but yeah, I do believe that going forward, once the infra is more reliable, like most issues hopefully will be solved independently. And the other ones, it should be like a joint task force, right? Yeah, I see that like the Facebook the Facebook root cause here in the chat was an infra failure. I think
It was.
In the end of the day, a developer most of the time crash only a small part of like the system. And the cool thing about being an SRE is when you do things, you do them, with a bang. And basically, it's not like only a small widget in Facebook is currently not working. Is that you broke half of the internet, and now no one can go and watch Netflix or Twitter or Facebook, obviously, and Instagram, because everything is crashing.
Yep.
So yeah, like it's a different blast radius that the infra team has, and the developer team. And the last one is like recommend the tools to empower dev teams to troubleshoot independently, or maybe not independently. But Baruch, what do you think are like the tools that are currently missing or are best in doing the bridge between the developers and
so what I would like to see, what I would love to see is a tool that brings developer into the context of what went wrong, because the symptoms of a problem are usually ops related, right? We can say, well, this part of the system is down or misbehaving. We can say like we see in the logs or we see in our monitoring system those parts that the transaction takes too long, or this times out, or this is not accessible. And those are ops or infrastructure signals that we get. How can we take those signals and see in the code where the developers live what went wrong? This is the challenge, and those are the tools that I would love to see emerging when we are in this together in the incident management, and we see ops level input. We know how it translates to dev level place in the code when the things went bump.
Yeah, I agree. I think like I can say that here at Komodor, like this is what we focused on, the ability to empower both the dev and the SRE, and to give each of them the right amount of context to troubleshoot the issue and to understand what is currently happening in his Kubernetes cluster. I think that like logging tools, for example, like if you look at like Kibana or even Splunk, they, because they are so customizable, I do see like in a lot of organization, they are the common ground for basically everyone. You see how the developer have their own dashboards and their own logs and so on. And you see the SRE team looking at their own dashboard. And if you have the NOC team, maybe they have their own dashboards and visualization. And I really believe that like this is a tool because it's so customizable. And it's quite easy, right? If you go into Kibana, at least to get started, you have one very simple bar, search for everything you want, and you will get the answer you want. So I think those tools are doing a great job in like bridging the gap and allowing both the SRE and the dev the same ability to view the world. Other than them, I will say that like tools such as APM are also right in the middle of the SRE and the dev,
Mhm.
because in APM tool like application performance monitoring, Jaeger, Zipkin, some parts of Datadog, some parts of New Relic,
Mhm.
the core of the APM is the application, which is like a developer responsibility. But the thing that the tracing tool is monitoring, it can be the latency, the 500, the 200, the 404, and this is more of like something in between, like between the dev and the operation.
Mhm.
And I think like the rise of the APM is basically the industry trying to speak in like both for those two target audience. I think like we don't see a huge adoption yet because it
Yeah.
is tricky and it is hard, and to understand distributed tracing, it's complex, right? It's not easy.
And not only that, I think it still most of the time doesn't go all the way.
Yeah.
Right, it doesn't go really into developers tools and kind of highlight where the problem is. Think about how advanced the tools for the infrastructure part of the house is. Right, you can know up to a line of configuration what went wrong. When we compare it to the devs part of the house, we are very, very far away from that there, right? Yes, APM takes you closer. Yes, they can show you performance metrics on some part of the code that was committed sometime by someone and probably runs somewhere in production, but it's very, very far away from giving the developers right there and then, right in the middle of the incident, the answer, hey, this code that you wrote broke everything, go ahead and fix that and it will fix the problem.
Yeah, I think like this kind of like understandability, I don't know, is the exact thing that we strive here at Komodor, but it is hard because everything is so intertwined between the DevOps configuration that just changed the firewall rule to the developer new application that was set up with the new IAM role. I don't know. And we see those words really intertwine, and to solve the issue, to give the context that like everyone needs to understand what is happening, you need the tool that understand those different corners of your application, both the infra and the app level, and to somehow make sense out of it. And we do see like tools trying to emerge here. I think like here at Komodor we are doing exactly that, but it is very tricky. There are a lot of like dark corners of troubleshooting and to finding the root cause. Like there is a reason. It's not like it isn't solved yet, right?
Absolutely.
Sorry. I think, well, let's move to Q&A, or Baruch, do you want
Yeah,
to add
no,
or say?
I think we're pretty much that's time. We have 10 minutes for Q&A. The only thing that I want to mention is that you folks really need to look at what Komodor does, because as a natural kind of segue from all the questions that we spoke about today, I think Komodor tries to answer exactly that. The part that we spoke about, the tool, the missing tool for developers to be as productive during incident management as the ops are now, I think that might very well, you might find very well that what Komodor does is the answer for this big gap in our tool chain for incident response.
Thank you, Val. Thank you. It's funny you said like that we try to answer the question here. I think that when we speak with developers and like SRE, one of the things that are very clear to us is that developers don't really know what questions to ask once they have an issue. It's funny you said it, but basically like I have an issue. What should I ask now, and where do I ask it? Like those are the two main things that separate a lot of the times between the newbies and the experts. They know what question to ask, and they know what tools will give them the information. We try to crystallize it so even someone less experienced will have the questions and answers in place. Okay. So let's move to the Q&A. I see we have a couple from Victoria. So the first question, is there a solution that helps providing better visibility and context to troubleshoot Kubernetes issues? So yeah, we talked a little bit about Komodor, right? I will say that like Komodor is a great tool, but I'm really biased. And the other tools that we're mentioning here, such as Datadog and like APM, Komodor doesn't really we don't replace them. We are like good friends with them. And I think if you don't have Prometheus or Jaeger or like any other observability tool, you should go and set it up right now if you are in Kubernetes, because if not, it will be really hard to understand what is happening. Yeah, Baruch, do you want to take the second question?
Yeah, so we're about to start migrating to Kubernetes. Do you have any tips to ensure smooth process? What should we consider? Yeah, well, we spoke about some of that today, and Kubernetes is extremely complex, right? I think one of the most popular resources of learning Kubernetes is Kubernetes the Hard Way by Kelsey Hightower. And the whole idea of that you need to learn Kubernetes the hard way is kind of telling. Yes, the cloud takes a lot of this complexity away. When you take Kubernetes as a service from whatever cloud provider you prefer, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, they make your life much easier because they hide a lot of this complexity. But when you are talking about taking it to production and being ready for those incidents, you actually have no way but to learn it inside out. And that, again, brings us to the question, who should learn it? Is it like an ops concern? It's a deployment platform. I, as a developer, don't care. Let the DevOps people, whoever they are, learn this crap. I'm just going to write code. Or should we be involved in knowing how Kubernetes works, how it should be troubleshooted in the case of an incident? And obviously the right question, the right answer is yes. The developers should know how to troubleshoot Kubernetes in production because it's their code that runs there and it's definitely their concern as well. So I would say make sure that you know what's going on and get ready with the tools that will help you, not when everything is great and you just deployed your hello world to Kubernetes and you're on top of the world, but when actually things go bump and you should know what to do in both the ops and the dev part of our DevOps house.
Exactly. Like said beautifully. The last question is, you spoke about lack of access. Do you have any tips or best practices on who you should grant access to and to what exactly? So I'm a believer that, like, at least from the view side, you should give it to anyone who is on call. Like, I don't see a way where you want the developers to handle production issues, but he can't access production. If you are a developer that in a company that expects you to solve real production issues without giving you the context, you should tell them it's not going to happen. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm handcuffed here, and you should give me the access. And basically, I'm quite liberate with how I see it. I believe both in trust, like trusting the developer, and having the right security mechanism in place, like right to production, like permission. Let's wait for a second, right? Let's not allow anyone to demolish production server like a database. But regarding view what is currently happening in Kubernetes, I think you should give, if not a direct access, which might be a bit radical, maybe, you should have like other systems that allow the developer or like the people in charge to view everything. It can be a combination of Prometheus and Kibana or Loki, or doesn't really matter. So you can't like put a blindfold on those areas that are required to troubleshoot. So anyone who needs to handle production issues, view is a must. To take action, I think if you don't trust the people, you should write a very large set of scripts in Jenkins or I don't know, Argo or whatever, Argo workflow or wherever you run your scripts in. and allow them to trigger it like manually via audited environment. So I think right access might be more tricky, and in those use cases, you should create an audited, safe way, maybe with source control, to allow them to take actions to solve the issue. Well,
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, and I agree. Again, we're coming back to helping the developers doing the right thing without like making it easy to destroy things, and tools help. When we speak about granting access, the right question is granting access through what? And if we have the right tools that mitigate the risks of people doing the wrong things, but providing the options for people doing the right thing, I think this is the key for doing the access control the right way.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much done and quite on schedule, right? So about it was like I really enjoyed talking with you about this. Really big shout out to you and to Jfrog, which is another great tool, like exactly in this space. Anything you want like to finish up? I leave the
Yeah,
stage.
so Itiel, thank you for hosting me. I think that was great. And as I already mentioned, folks, you are more than invited to take a look of what Komodor does. I think it should definitely solve a lot of those questions that we discussed together, as long as they're relevant to you. And they should be relevant to almost all of us. And while tools come third in this people process tools equation for DevOps, they are still very, very important, because they also not only they support the culture, they also enable the right culture and move you toward the right cultural decision. So definitely take a look at Komodor.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, just a reminder that today's webinar has been recorded, so if you missed any or all of the webinar, you will be able to watch it again. We will be sending an email with a link to access the webinar on demand. It will also be available on DevOps.com. Just look in the on-demand section in the webinars page, and it will be there. And now to announce our 4 Amazon gift card winners. Our winners today are Antoinette S. Congratulations. Douglas F. Anna S. And finally, Stephen O. So congratulations to all our winners. We'll be reaching out to you via email with instructions for claiming your Amazon gift card. So please check your inbox. And if you don't see it there, just check your spam folder. Thanks again to Baruch and Itiel for an excellent webinar. And thanks again to the audience for joining us and for your engagement. This is Julio Godinez signing off until next time. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.